Record now. Okay. So first, good morning, Drew. How are you?
Good morning to you, Rochelle. I'm doing pretty well. How about you?
I am moving along the best I can. Uh,
That's that's good.
I want to start by saying something about you. I tell you this all the time, but you are one of the very few people that I know that I have so much respect and admiration of and for, because you are truly a leader in a way that many people don't even understand leadership. You know, people think, well, if I'm in charge of people, I can just march on down the road and everything will go according to plan. But I think the fact that you care enough to educate your colleagues, bring a topic to us and discuss it with us, bring an expert to a conversation, that's really great. To participate in our text and collab group and to share your experiences and your knowledge. I think that people that do not already know you should know you, because I think what you give to the world is beyond just I'm Drew Stinnett, I'm brilliant, I'm a great IT person, but I'm also very, very human, and I'm very grateful to call you a friend.
Oh, I really appreciate that, Rochelle. That it makes me both very happy and very humble. I will say the exact same about you. Um, One thing that I really like about all of our conversations is that whenever we talk, whether it's about a movie or just seeing each other on campus, like you always give me a unique perspective that keeps me thinking like the next day and the day after that and the day after that, and it's always it's both very, I don't know, I feel very humbled whenever I talk to you. So I'm glad that I'm very happy for your friendship, and I'm excited to keep it going. And every time we talk, there's like, oh, I never thought about that, and it's not just something small; it's something very profound. And I'm happy. I'm always happy to talk to you. I guess is what I would like to say.
Thank you. Me too. And I have to tell our audience that it was your idea, Drew, at the movies that brought this to life for me, because I had not even given this much thought until we did our discussion. It was such a wonderful discussion. We exchanged ideas about things that we thought about the movie that we had seen. And so when I left that later on that day, I was sitting on my couch and I was sitting there and I was thinking, oh my God, I could do this with diversity, and so you are the person who brought this idea to my mind and have launched it for me. So thank you again so much for that. I tell you, you are brilliant, simply brilliant. So thank you.
I'm very happy about that. The movie thing was just something that I don't know. I would listen to. My dad is retired, and he used to work at a newspaper, and he had done a podcast for like a local thing in our hometown, and it was very it was very interesting to hear him talk about like his work and things just with somebody off the cuff. And that's sort of what gave me the idea, because when we're at home, like, you know, our families don't really know about all of our friends at work and things that we do and things like that. And just having that sort of record of, here's a conversation, here's something that, is not, how was work? Oh, it was fine. Like, I don't want to talk about it.
Right.
So like, I think having conversations like this, I don't know, it really helps.
Yep.
It's for like a record of, hey, these are two people. Rochelle and Drew aren't just like technology people that go to work and bang on keyboards all day long. They've got, opinions and feelings, and are human beings. And I don't know. It's sort of nice to get that down get it down on the record.
Absolutely. I agree with you completely. So I'm going to start our chat, and I'm going to start by asking you these questions. Can you tell us a little bit about you, your family, your play, your work, your social life, just in general? No specific about the times that we're experiencing right now, but just give us some sense
Sure.
of who you are.
Yeah, absolutely. So I grew up in Lynchburg, Virginia, which is in like central Virginia. Uh, I went to college for theater. I was going to become an actor, or I liked acting. I'll say that. And that's sort of where I think my life was headed throughout college. And then when I got out of college, that's when I sort of got into doing computers. And I both really like computers, and computers actually provided better income than theater, believe it or not, meaning like it provided a level of income.
I,
So I sort of switched over to doing computer stuff shortly after college, and continued doing community theater and things like that. Um, got married in the early 2000s, 2000, oh Lord, 2005, 2004.
better make sure you know that.
Oh, my wife just yelled 2004.
You better.
I know it was 2004. I was just keeping you on your toes.
Perfect.
And then we had our son James in 2006. I've been working at Duke for about a little over 10 years. I really like Duke. I think it's definitely my favorite of all the places I've worked.
Mm-hmm.
Free time wise, I watch like a ton of movies. Big surprise. That's if movies can be a hobby, that's probably my biggest hobby. Um, yeah, and that's pretty much it.
Is there any type of movie you like better than the other? A genre?
So I definitely, if I had to pick like a genre, it would be horror movies.
Ooh.
Yes, especially like low budget horror movies.
Ooh.
There's some good and some bad horror movies.
Body. Oh, I hate horror movies. I haven't seen a horror. So I've seen The Omen.
Oh yeah.
What's the movie when the woman's head spin around and she's
The Exorcist?
Exorcist, I've seen that, and I've seen The Shining, and that's as far as I've been. And I'm gonna tell you, they have left such a mark on me that I will never watch another horror movie again in life. And so my husband and I had this conversation not too long ago about The Godfather. So I said, I saw that movie. Say hello to my little friend. That is a horror movie to me now. So I just.
You jumped into the deep end with those because like Exorcist and Omen and
The Shining.
The Shining, yeah, those are like I mean The Shining is incredibly disturbing. That like the imagery in that is like it's stuff of nightmares.
Yes, exactly.
So I would recommend some maybe like lighter horrors.
No horror for us whatsoever. I mean, I can't even take gratuitous violence right now. That's even too much for me. Have you seen the movie A Clockwork Orange?
Oh yeah.
So that's now my as far as I'm going is A Clockwork Orange, because that's also a very disturbing movie. So it's like, okay, I can't go any further than that. So
it is. That was that's still disturbing. That both that and The Shining were both Stanley Kubrick films, and he has like a really good. He knows how to disturb you, and things that are just like viscerally disturbing, like that eyeball scene in Clockwork Orange.
Oh yep, absolutely. So you're married, and you've been married now 2004. You've been 16 years. You've been married. Can you tell me, do you have any concerns in the overall society for your health, safety, and growth for you and your family?
So that's an excellent question. I would say in general, I think we're all concerned about health. The older you get, the more health becomes like something that I worry about. But again, I've been fairly like lucky as far as health goes. The things that I really worry about are, I guess when you have a kid, like you sort of stop thinking about yourself as much and sort of worry about the world that they're growing up in. And the thing to bring about back around to like times right now, like it disturbs me, the things that we're seeing in our time now, because that's not the America that I want my son to be like a part of. Like I don't necessarily fear for him as like, a white person because of our times. Like white people aren't the people that are getting the brunt of this like awfulness. But I don't want him growing up in a world that thinks that is normal, if that makes sense. So that's sort of where, I don't know, I guess that's where my fears about things come in, is I don't want this sort of time to be normalized.
Right.
And that part makes me sad.
So have you and your wife discussed this at all in the world that your child is growing up? And I want to ask a follow-on question to that. I had one white friend, and I think I could use friend loosely. he said to me one day, he says, I have Black friends. And my first response to that was, what I thought to say, but I did not say, was, well, I have white friends. What does that mean that you say something like that? So as you and your wife think about yourselves, your advantage, your to some degree entitlement, how do
Oh
you
yeah.
how do you discuss this together? And have, before the death of Mr. Floyd, had you thought about that at all?
So yes, we definitely have discussions about that, and I think, I think we're fairly open about that with our son and with each other as far as these things go. And I think, I say we're all on the same page, and I'm fairly confident that we are. And uh, I don't know. I feel like we're in a good place there, at least within our like 3-person family. Um, I also feel like we probably don't talk about it enough, and it should be. I don't think that it's something that you have these conversations, and then it's like, okay, kid, now you know all this, you're good to go. We never have to talk about it again. I mean, I think that's going to be a lifelong. I think for all of us, it's sort of a lifelong thing that we're going to have to work on and strive to. Like, it's never going to stop. Like, it's 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 a constant part of life, and it needs to be a constant part of life for generations at this point. Like, I would have thought before a year ago, I would have thought, and a lot of this is again, like, sort of living a privileged life, is that all that racism and all that stuff from the 60s, I thought that was in the 60s, that there would be like pieces of it here and there, but it's not. I never expected it to be like it is now. And there's not a good reason for me not to expect that, because it's well documented, and you know it's out there. But I would say until George Floyd, it didn't really pop for me that, like, this is, like, it never stopped. Like, things have gotten better, but things haven't been repaired. There's still this awful, like, I don't even want to call it an undertone, because it's like an overtone now. And that's something that, you know, we have to work really hard on it,
Yeah.
like, immediately and for the rest of our lives, because the 60s were a long time ago. And I almost feel like we're right back to that point now, and it's awful. So I'm probably rambling, but I just wanted to sort of say it. And, like, I feel like it's a lifelong thing that we're going to have to do with our children and with our children's children, and then maybe even, generations after that, which sucks, but it's a worthwhile. I mean, it's obviously it's a worthwhile thing that we need to be doing.
Well, I will tell you this, on almost every Black person's mind is the date, the year 1619. 1619 was the day the first African arrived on American shores in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
And since that time, almost everything that can be done to dehumanize a person has been done.
Yes.
So back 1619 to probably sometime in the early 1900s, Black people were raped, lynched, killed for small infractions. And we were brought here to stand up the economic wealth of those plantation owners and those other people. And as we move into the 1900s, we're now struggling to go to school because it was a crime to educate a Black person. And so now we have Brown versus Board of Education. And yes, we're now integrated, but we're not accepted. And the brunt of the harshness that is in this world is aimed at Black people, although brown people also experience a certain degree of harshness. And so when we think about the world around us, we're not just thinking about, are we going to order pizza tonight? Are we going to go see a movie? We're wondering, can we go out and make it back home safely? We're wondering, will we keep our job? Will we be paid equitably to our white colleague or our brown colleague or whomever? Will we be hired, to a job, because as you mentioned where you work, if you look across the board, we are not very diverse in terms
Yeah.
of race, more diverse in terms of gender. You know, women are finally getting a voice, but not in terms of color. And
Yeah.
someone said, my skin color is my protection. So the lighter you are, the safer you are. But then that's really not the case, because if you look at me, I'm considered a light-skinned Black woman. And the reason
Mhm.
why I am this woman is because somewhere in my history, some white man raped some member of my ancestor, and this color persists as we've gone along. And I don't
Yeah.
mean to lecture here, but I'll say this one last thing. What Jim Crow did to Black people was so profound. I mean, someone should figure out how to put that in a package and sell it, because it divided us. It
Yeah.
divided. So if you're light skinned, you're better than you're dark skinned. If you have fine hair, you're better than if you have kinky hair. And even today, we still struggle with these constructs that define us or imprison us to the rest of the world. You know, the
Yeah.
fact that you and I have a friendship, the fact that I can call you and ask you for help, or you can call me and say, hey, Rochelle, I'm coming over there to teach you guys about OpenShift. That's progress. But
Yeah.
in 2020, my 21-year-old son goes to Greensboro College. He drives from his home in Durham to Greensboro College, which is exactly 48 miles. And the
Hmm.
minute he pulls out of my driveway, I start praying until he gets to school. And then I require him to tell me he made it safely. And
Yeah.
when he calls and says, I'm on my way home, I start praying again, and I don't stop until he makes it home. And sometimes I don't think certain white people understand what we feel and what we experience. You know, when I started this channel, I said, I'm willing to be fired for it. I'm willing to be homeless for it, because I think it's such an important conversation to have with everybody. And there is no right or wrong. You feel what you feel, you think what you think, and you experience what you experience. And for someone to criticize you for that would be wrong.
Yeah.
I just hope out of these protests and all of these uh, activities that we're seeing around us bring about change. And I hope you are wrong that it's not going to take generations and generations, but in the immediate term, before I die, and I'm 61 years old, before I die, that there is some level of equality that you, and not you specifically, but white people see me as human, that I am a human being, that my son is a human being, my husband is a human being, and that the thought of putting your knee on my neck for 8 minutes and 46 seconds would be offensive to you.
Yes. Yes. Another thing is I've really liked watching your YouTube videos with the other folks. They have all been super informative. Talking about how when you were talking with Skip, and he was talking about how, like, when he has an interaction with a police officer, his goal is, I want to survive this encounter. Like, I'll say that was like very eye-opening for me, because again, I understand that, like, in my mind, I know that Black people versus white people obviously have different encounters with the police, but I wouldn't have thought that, like, every Black encounter with the police is something that in their mind, they're, you know, they want to survive the encounter. And that is it's a sad state of affairs, because, you know, when I've been pulled over, surviving isn't even like that's not what I'm thinking of. I'm thinking of, how do I not get a ticket? Which is like, it's stupid, right? It's stupid in the grand scheme of things. And it's I don't know. I just wish that we didn't have that separation, and that, like, somewhere there should be, I should be worried about more than just getting a ticket, and Skip should be worried about less than having to survive. And I hope that we can meet in the middle somewhere. You know, these two horrible opposites are horrible.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I don't think it's stupid that you worry. We have the same fear too. How much is this going to cost? Do I have to take a day off to go to court? You know,
Oh
what
yeah.
fees and fines I'm going to have to pay for this? You know, which is
Yeah.
one of the reasons why I've always challenged by law how subjective it is. So if you take us back to OJ, you know, I don't know whether he did it or not, and I'm certainly not going to proclaim his innocence. I just know what we've seen in the public domain.
Yeah.
And you saw Black people excited that another black man wasn't jailed for something, whether he did it or not, but that there was
Sure.
that we did have access to justice. But in reality, can I get home? Can I get home from this encounter safely? And in my 60 years, I've been driving probably since I was about 9 or 10. I grew up in the country, and we started off driving
Oh,
very early then. So
nice.
I have been pulled over several times. I never thought I wasn't going to make it home. It didn't encounter me. And the question was, is this man going to charge me with doing 80 and a 25?
Yeah.
So that kind of
Yeah.
question more than, whether I was going to survive. And I grew up in a small town in South Carolina where the N-word was so commonly used that I didn't think there was anything wrong with somebody calling me that. I didn't think it was a problem, and it wasn't until I left that town and moved further into the world that I realized that that wasn't appropriate for somebody to call me that, a
How
man.
old were you when that realization finally came? Because that's also very that's
So every summer, I grew up in Walterboro, South Carolina. Every summer, my mother would send me, my adopted mother would send me to Richmond, Virginia to stay with her older sister. And so being in Richmond was a little different than South Carolina, Walterboro, but it was still semblances of racism, but not quite as overt as they were in South Carolina. So going back and forth to Richmond, and this only started when I was in high school, gave me the start of a view. But I had heard the N-word then too. And I think I may have told you this. I was on my way to college when I had stopped by a kiosk and a man said, "We're trying to bring Negroes into computers." I was 18 years old.
uh-huh.
And so I thought he was being polite because he called me a Negro. So, okay. And then he said the word computers, which is something that had not been in my vocabulary or not something I was familiar with. But what he said that really triggered it for me is, "I'll pay you $30,000 a year." I'm 18 years old and I have been poor and hungry my entire life. And this man said that to me. So the thought of going to college just completely left my mind. And I thought, okay, I'm going to do this. And this is how I got my start. And so, like you, I've had a pretty privileged life in the sense that I haven't had a fear of dying. I haven't had a fear of being hurt. I have been hungry a good portion of my life, probably not until my mid-30s that I stabilized to the fact that I didn't get evicted, that I did have a meal. I could feed my child. I could move about the country wherever. I could get a new job just at the drop of a hat. I had that. But it's really marrying my husband that really stabilized me and helped me see the world from a different lens. Because when I was in school, my geometry teacher told me that I should not want to be anything except for married and pregnant. And then I had my history teacher told me that Christopher Columbus discovered America. And so these were the things that I was given as a foundation of who I was. And when I married my husband, he opened my eyes to a different world because he had grown up in a two-parent home. I was adopted by my paternal aunt, of course, not by a stranger, but he had a two-parent home. He didn't go hungry. He felt safe. He had a community. All the people in his neighborhood knew each other and protected each other. So they were there. I did not have that life, but he gave me a sense of stability and a sense that I was more than the N-word, that I was more than, these stereotypes that people associate with me. I think you probably heard me say this a lot of times, specifically where I work, I'm the angry Black woman. And that's not the case at all. I'm the hurt Black woman. And I think that a lot of people fail to recognize that.
Yeah, that angry Black woman title is it's very weird because personally, I've never actually even seen you angry. And having that title applied is like, what does that even mean? Like, that's, and first, it's fine to be angry, but giving someone the title of angry plus Black plus woman is a very, like, it seems like a pointless. People are stupid. I don't. I have a hard time verbalizing a lot of that stuff, but things like that are very. They seem very stupid to say. Like, if I were to get mad at something, would someone say, "Oh, you're an angry white man"? It's like,
No.
yeah, like what does that even mean? Like, that's not anger is a mood.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say, further to my point, like, I can't tell you how many times I've been passed over for jobs at the place where I work at now. I
Yeah,
still am not paid the same as the person who left me, and his job role was folded into my job. To this day, I don't make as much as he made while he was doing the one job he was doing at my place. And now
yeah,
I do two jobs, and my pay is still less than what he made doing just one. And I had more education, more experience, and everything else. And when I've applied for jobs, literally, we found someone else better than you. And so what I sometimes think about emerging technologies is they are actually set to reinforce stay in your place if you're Black. So if your name is Shaniqua Jones, or if you went to an HBCU or whatever it is, obviously you got two strikes against you already. If you've got some characteristic that may make someone uncomfortable, you may find yourself not able to get a job. I was very fortunate to get the job that I have because my organization came looking for me. I did not go looking for them. But when I have applied for jobs, almost every single time, I haven't even had the benefit of an interview. And so when you think about yourself in that regard, as I always say, you're brilliant, you're personable, you have a great disposition about you. So, I can imagine if you applied to be a director or a senior director or whatever, you would have a less harder time getting it than I would. And although I may have more education and more experience than you do, you have something about you that makes you different than what my opportunities are. You will.
yeah,
I mean, I am sure among white men specifically, there are pay discrepancies, but they're not so much so that you feel like I need to leave this job because I'm not paid or I'm not recognized enough. So, in my mind, it is a privilege to be white, and it's a supreme privilege to be a white male, because literally, what does the world deny you? What does the world tell you you can't do or you can't have? And for
no,
me,
nothing.
yeah,
It's and while like personally, my experience at least at Duke has been there. At least the things that I've been involved in, I've never noticed any like discrimination or really any sort of uh, non-prep, not preference towards white people as opposed to anyone else. But where I do think a lot of it comes in is when like if a job position opens up and the group is a bunch of white men, the first thought is, oh, well, who have I worked with in the past that would be a good
right,
fit for this job? And as a white man that has worked with mostly white men, only white men are going to come to mind. And I think that's where like we as white men need to change is we have to recognize that, because we work in an industry that's all white men, we shouldn't be giving preferences to our white male friends because, I mean, personally, they've gotten enough favors. White people are fine in this world right now, right? Like that's not who's being marginalized. And I think and you already know this, I don't need to tell you, but for other people that are watching this that may be in a similar position to me is, we need to reach out more. And I don't think that we do that well enough. Like if we're hiring for a job and we get, we pull in 5 white people because we know 5 white people and 5 white people are the people that applied, that doesn't mean that that's enough. Like we should be reaching out more. We shouldn't be waiting for people to come to us, and we shouldn't be just recommending people we know. And that's something that I will definitely say, like, when I've seen jobs come up in the past, I think, oh, person X would be perfect for this because I worked with them in the past and I know they do a great job. And that's, you know, that's something that I feel like I'm trying to work on now, is not doing that for, for new jobs. Like, don't recommend person X just because that's the person that I've worked with, because that's fine. Like, they're doing fine. We need to, where the whole diversity thing is, we need to pull in people that we don't know and people that we aren't familiar with, because they're going to do just as good, if not a better job than what we're already doing. And
I think that's correct. I think that I believe in hiring the most qualified, but I believe giving everybody in the pool a chance to prove their qualifications, as opposed to assuming what their qualifications are. What you described is a term called homosocial reproduction. We prefer to be with people who look like us and think like us, so that we make that offhand joke, no one is offended, or if we do this thing, no one will feel out of place because we all share commonalities. So that's really great. We are down to our last 4 minutes, so I am going to give the floor to you to say whatever it is you wish to share. And as I said in my email to you or chat with you, once this is recorded, I will send it to you. You will look at it, review it. And if you decide that it's good, we will upload it. And if you decide it is not, we will not. We will do it again, or whatever you need us to do.
Oh, well, first off, I'm sure it's fine. So feel free to upload whenever you want. I don't have too much specific to say. I wanted to thank you again for doing this, because I've watched all of the videos that you've uploaded, and I've learned something from everyone. So I'm very happy. This is one of those things where you don't know something is really missing in your life until you see it.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't know, growing up and just sort of thinking, oh, everything's fine, every now and then there's a racial incident that happens out there, and it's bad, but everything's fine. And I think both talking with you and seeing you talk to other people, as well as trying to immerse yourself in things that are not necessarily comfortable to you all the time, for me, that really helps give a unique perspective. And I'm happy. Like, honestly, I don't know that I would be searching out those perspectives without hearing you talk about it. Like, and again, I'll throw out the Tech Expo you did a couple of years ago. Like, it was very eye-opening to hear someone verbalize the struggles that people have. And it's not, I think we're obviously at a point now where if you're a white person and you think, and you want things better, you can't just stay silent at this point. Like, we're long past being able to say, everything's mostly fine. It's working out for me. Everybody else will figure it out. We need to work through that together. And silence is, I don't know what the right word is. Silence is not what we need. We need everybody to be on the same page and get this horrible racial, we need to stop it with the racial injustice and get that, stamp it out. Like, and we need to do it now.
Yeah. And I hope we can. Someone said silence is violence. I don't know if that's correct, but I do think that we, my last thought, like, we would not be out of slavery by our own hands. We needed white, brown, blue, green, and everybody to see a common need to remove slavery. And I think this is the same one of those movements. We can't do it by ourselves as Black and brown people. We are going to need white people to understand and join us in this fight to get to the other side.
Yeah. And you shouldn't have to do it by yourself either. Like, that's another thing. It's like, it's not your fault. It's, it's far from your fault. It's everyone else's fault. And it shouldn't be your job to fix it. Like, we all have to fix it. It's all of our jobs to fix it. It's not,
Well, Drew, I thank you very much for this time. I'm very grateful for you. I'm still going to send the video to you to have you look at it just to make sure you're comfortable with it.
Will
And
do.
you can tell me when you're ready for me to upload it. But thank you so much for your friendship. Thank you so much for the things that you have taught me and you've been willing to share with me. One of the things that when I formed Text and Collab was really because I wanted to have my own community of IT people I could go to when I had a problem or a question or a solution that I could not find through my regular means. And your membership in that group has been probably among the highest of people there because you are constantly thinking about how to improve or to add new tools to people's tool bag. And I think you need to pat yourself on the back about that because I really do think that's an admirable thing that you do because even the leadership that we have, very, very infrequent do they come up with these ideas of sharing their knowledge beyond just their office or their department or their group. So thank you very much for that.
No, I really appreciate that, Rochelle. That's I take that to heart, and thank you.
Absolutely. Well, you stay well, and I will be in touch with you soon.
All right, that sounds great, Rochelle. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Yeah, if I don't die. Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Take care. Bye.